Well, well, well. A woman has been found guilty of a crime. Hallelujah. Justice, in a sense, has been served. Though the woman who accused a group of Israeli men of gang raping her in a hotel room in Cyprus has received merely a suspended sentence rather than incarceration, and her name still has not been put out to the public. Needless to say, feminists are pissed. And no feminist had a hotter take on how women are oppressed than Julie Bindel, who opined a few years ago offering to put all of us evil men in concentration camps for the good of the Volk. I mean women and girls. Anyway, this tasty screed by Julie is titled, "Why Are Some So Keen to Believe Women Lie About Rape?" Well, because some of them do, Julie. There are some layers to this onion, so let's go ahead and just dig right in. Starting the article. Are women inherently dishonest? Well, yes. Yes, they are. Just like men. Everybody is lying about something. I made peace with that concept a long time ago. Spontaneous honesty is a rare commodity. The only questions I consider with respect to other people and lying are, what is the person lying about? And does the lie affect me in some way? Back to the article. We must be, particularly when accusing men of rape. This is one of the most pervasive of all rape myths, that women love nothing better than maliciously and falsely accusing decent, law-abiding men of sexual violation. And we come to the old feminist flip strategy. What they call out other people for doing, they do themselves. You know how they like to get their dander up about women wearing short skirts, and if you ask a woman a question, usually in the interest of developing a clearer picture or timeline of what happened prior to the event in question, you must believe she had it coming and deserved to be raped. You know, you're a bad person if you don't shut off your brain and parrot what she tells you. Well, this is the feminist version of it. If a woman says that you have wronged her, then you must deserve to have the weight of the law fall on your head. A female accusation is the feminist version of, "That's what you get for wearing a short skirt, you slut." I've had to interrupt twice in one paragraph. This is going to be terrible. Back to the article, though. Some of the coverage of the poor young woman in Cyprus would lead you to believe that men are walking targets for female fantasists hell-bent on destroying their lives. Having met the young woman convicted of making false allegations of rape against 12 men, I am very clear that she is not lying. Really? Based on what? Seriously, that's just a conclusion, Jules. Now comes the part where you give some reasoning, some relevant fact that logically leads to said conclusion. Oh, wait. You won't? Okay then. Back to the article. Why is it then that we are so keen to believe that young women in particular lie about rape? Well, Jules, because it has in fact happened before. Alright, let's see what twist Jules puts on the old canard, why would a woman ever lie about rape? Back to the article. So those women that do go to the trouble of reporting rape are, according to some, making it up. Their motives? They hate men and want to punish them for some minor transgression or other. Why, yes. For example, see the University of Virginia false rape accusation by Jackie Coakley, which led to the libelous article published in Rolling Stone in 2014 titled, "A Rape on Campus." Her motive? To gin up sympathy from a young man that she actually liked. And what better way to farm for sympathy and ass pats than by claiming you were gang raped on a broken glass table for 3 hours? A false accusation with gang rape is part of the narrative. This seems oddly familiar somehow. But back to the article. Perhaps the man they falsely accused of rape dumped and humiliated the complainant, so she decided to get her own back. Or these women have been told that they can pull in a load of compensation. The average payout by Criminal Injuries Compensation Authority is over £11,000, which would no doubt take them on numerous luxury holidays to resorts to pick up gangs of men for sex. Well, Jules, that's not completely unheard of. See the Brian Banks false accusation. His accuser, Juanetta Gibson, lived high on the hog with the $1.5 million that she got from the Long Beach Unified School District. Her conscience, with respect to sending an innocent man to prison for a crime he didn't commit, did not show up until the money ran out. And we can also punch India, false rape, extortion into Google and pull up dozens of individuals, mostly women, using the threat of false rape accusation to extort money from well-to-do men. I'd like to repeat my point that everybody lies, and that includes women. I'll also add that women, despite feminist narratives to the contrary, are just as capable of malice and greed as men are. Shocking. But we're not finished yet. Back to the article. Either way, the disproportionate media coverage on cases of women convicted of making false allegations of rape can give much of the general public, and therefore those sit on juries in rape trials, the impression that women are dangerous fantasists that imagine being raped. You mean that it gives the jury the impression that they should follow the evidence presented and take notice where the evidence is strong or weak, such as when a complaining witness says, "He raped me on a broken glass table for 3 hours," and the defendant, by pleading not guilty and then speaking no further like they should, infers that they did not in fact rape the complaining witness on a broken glass table for 3 hours. The jury, being of, well, hopefully average intelligence and taking both claims as equal, can ask for additional evidence to tip the balance one way or the other. Where are the scars? Where's the broken table? Where are the bloodstains? Etc. Juries are triers of fact, so if you want them to come to a specific fact-based conclusion, you have to give them facts, things that they can actually see with their own eyes and possibly touch with their own hands. Back to the article. Increasingly, the defense used by men accused of rape in consent cases is that the complainant has happily and enthusiastically participated in the type of sex that tends to be a popular porn narrative, such as having a gangbang with a load of strange men. If the complainant is forensically examined and is found to have suffered internal bleeding, extensive bruising, and signs of serious trauma, this is dismissed as merely signs of the rough and tumble of sexual activity. And that is a plausible explanation. Now, this might taste just a little bit like an ad hominem, but I promise I'm going somewhere with it. Julie Bindel, to put it bluntly, is an unabashed, man-hating lesbian. So, she doesn't like dick. Great. Whatever. The problem comes not from her particular preference for burgers over sausage, but the fact that she cannot step far enough outside of herself to understand why any other woman might prefer sausages to burgers. So her position is that she wouldn't want a dick, much less several dicks at one time, therefore she cannot conceive of any other woman on earth wanting several dicks. Therefore, no such woman exists, QED. But this is not a verifiable conclusion, even if you believe that any of those quote-unquote amateur or wife gangbangs, which I've heard allegedly exist on the internet, involve actual amateurs or wives. But even then, Julie, being the dishonest shill that she is, ignores the radical feminist lesbian fixation on BDSM. And I think Bell Hooks even talked about lesbians and BDSM in Feminism is for Everybody. But lesbians are awfully keen on tying each other up and leaving bruises on other women. What I'm getting at is, Julie Bindel should probably stop inferring her own prudery onto all other women. Back to the article. The impression given by the focus on women supposedly lying about sexual assault is that while countless men languish in prison, their accusers are having a rare old time buying vodka shots while snogging any half-decent man available and setting him up as her next victim. Presumably, part of her holiday fun is getting ready to give a detailed statement to police, alleging serious sexual assault if things don't work out for her on their date. It must be a major cheap thrill to recount humiliating details of previous sexual history in public, and enduring, on the very rare occasion it gets this far, a Crown Court trial where she, rather than the accused, is judged. So now Julie, being typical, is getting snippy when she doesn't have an actual argument to make. The number of men sitting in prison for crimes they didn't commit doesn't affect the position that no one should be in prison for something they didn't do. You know, the old Blackstone formulation. Better that 10 guilty men should go free than one innocent man be punished. I reject out of hand this idea that putting an innocent man in prison is acceptable collateral damage. And hell, I've never been comfortable with the idea of plea bargaining, especially as a routine disposition of criminal cases. And as for getting ready to make a detailed but false statement to the police, come on, Jules. Women, especially young women, rarely think that far ahead. They just turn on the tears and then give the statement, and then once you go over the statement with them again, and possibly for a third time, the fatal contradictions start popping up. The story changes the more she tells it, which is just as suspicious as someone who tells the exact same story, the exact same way, in the exact same words, every single time, which usually means they're just reciting it. Let's get back to the article. After 40 years of campaigning to end rape, I am well aware that the real injustice relating to rape is that the vast majority of men who commit rape will never even be reported to police, let alone locked in a prison cell. Jules? How can the police take action on a possible crime if they don't know that the crime possibly happened? You have to report it before the police do something about it. Really gets the old noggin jogging, doesn't it? Back to the article. Have a think about any 18 to 19-year-old young woman you know, perhaps in your friendship circle or the daughter or granddaughter of your friends. Do you really think these young women are fair game for a gangbang with several strangers in a cheap hotel room, or might that be the fantasy of young, porn-sick men? Maybe, maybe not. How much do you really know about anyone that you're acquainted with? I'm sure that there are plenty of surprised husbands who tripped and fell over their wife's text messages to their boyfriend about how she couldn't wait for him to spit in her mouth and fuck her ass, when she wouldn't even let hubby have sex with her with the lights on. Just as I am sure that there have been many wives who were surprised when their husband of many years and the father of their multiple children walked into the house one day with his boyfriend of several years. And that's not even getting into the numerous 18 and 19-year-olds who have found their way onto the casting couches of low-rent porn production companies, and just because they were pissed off at mommy and daddy, which led to them getting pissed on camera for $1,000 or so, that's what credible sources have told me. Concluding the article. Imagine if you are lucky enough not to have experienced it, what it must feel like to be raped, traumatized, hurt and scared, only to be punished for daring to speak out. Because the reality about rape is that women who report sexual assault are far more likely to be judged and blamed than the accused. That's only assuming that the accuser is telling the truth, which, as pointed out earlier, is not necessarily the case. Just as in this particular case, the court in Cyprus determined that the accuser was not telling the truth. And the reality is that this woman, like many others, received a lighter sentence than a man would for the exact same crime. She was essentially put on a plane and told to not come back to Cyprus. A man guilty of wasting the court's time and laying false charges would be doing a stretch in prison, which is an institutional bias that feminists not only support, but in Julie's native Britain, they actively defend it and seek to expand it. Oh look, I guess there are some upsides to being a woman after all.